Hey, talking to myself. Welcome to the podcast. I know that you gon' feel Dave Sands, the second, talking movies and gaming, even anime. Yeah, I might just go Super Saiyan. 242, the Bahamas, we gon' rep. Don't be anxious about nothing. Philippians 4:6. Sharing about my life, sharing about God's truth. Always keep it real when I'm talking to myself. Let's go.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Talking to Myself. Hey, Talking to Myself. Welcome to the podcast. I know that you gonna feel Dave Sands, the second, talking movies and gaming, even anime. Yeah, I might just go Super Saiyan. With yours with the very most, Dave Sands numero dos. We are back, man, once again. Wow. Episode 17, which in Spanish is 17. Did I Google it before this because I couldn't remember? Absolutely. But we move. Man, how's everybody doing? How are we all doing? What week is this? This is the week of Friday, November 10th. Does that mean much? I don't know. You let me know. Does it mean something special to you this week? No? Well, it's just another week, another day of life. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon to whenever you're listening to the show. Thank you all so much for supporting the last episode. As I usually say, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, or if you haven't gotten a chance to leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts at, do that now so that I may know that you're enjoying the show. But as per usual, we have a very exciting episode for you all today. Truthfully, as normally what happens with the show, I tried to figure out what I'm going to say and what I'm going to talk about. And so I had one topic on my mind for a very long time this week, and I didn't know, frankly, where I was going to go with it until some other things kind of came up, and it just tied together, and it made so much sense to me now, and I have so much clarity on kind of what I want to talk about. But yeah, notification sound? But no, I hope that you all enjoy this episode. I'm excited to be here. As always, excited to have this microphone in my hand, and yeah, let's get right into it. But I guess actually before that, how has the week been? It's been a long week. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, one of those weeks where tiredness definitely has been boxing me out. Like, we're in like a round 10 championship match, and I'm losing. Frankly, because of this time change. I don't like. I was supposed to look this up before the show. Like, what time changes this? People are saying this is daylight savings time. I thought the time we were previously on was daylight savings time. I may be wrong, and I'm not afraid to be wrong. Okay, so we fall back, spring forward. What daylight saving? Okay, whatever time we're on. No, wait, hold on. Let me see. I see another daylight saving time. Okay, no. Whatever time we're on right now, I don't like. Why don't I like this time change? Number one, my evenings are darker. By 5:30, it's looking like 9 p.m. As some of you may know, I like to run. And now instead of like running with the beautiful sunset in the background, I'm running into pitch black darkness. And I'm just like, bro, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I saw like a funny meme on IG is like, did we save the time? Has the time been saved? Like, have we saved it? Because I don't feel like we did. I frankly am not a fan of this time change. I'm still trying to adjust to it. I don't like it, you know? I think a couple months back, there was supposed to be like a law somewhere. I don't know if it was the US or wherever it may be, that we're just going to be on the previous time, like on the springtime, where we have like light all the time, bro. Like, whoever decided to like do this, like, we need to have a conversation, because why? I definitely prefer the other time instead of the one that we are currently on. But hey, I don't make the rules. I just follow them. You know what I mean? So we will adjust accordingly, and my body will hopefully at some point be fully adjusted to this time change. But my goodness, it has been cut in my hip. But we move. But with that being said, let's talk about this topic that has been stuck on my mind this whole week. And it's the topic of back to basics. Such a simple set of words, but I think are so powerful. When I thought of what I want to talk about, immediately this kind of came to my mind. What do you think when you see back to basics, right? When you think of back to basics, at least for me, what I thought of is getting back to something. That could be getting back to a version of myself that I may have lost along the way somewhere, whether it be getting back to routine that I might have lost somewhere as well, or just getting back to something, right? And what I like about the idea of getting back to basics is this, you're kind of self-aware that something is kind of off. For me, it was just dude, I just don't know. I just feel I just don't feel the normal version of myself, the normal Dave, if that makes sense. You kind of just feel like you're just kind of floating through life. You're kind of on autopilot, right? And so it's just how do I get back to some level of normality in my mind, from the, the mental side and the physical side and the spiritual side. How do I get back to those sides of me? And so some ways I kind of did that this week was I had to get back to the one thing I know best, which is cartoons, ladies and gentlemen, because I as y'all know, big fan of cartoons, big fan of my 90s cartoons. In my humble opinion, humility, right? But in my humble opinion, 90s cartoons are so much better than the cartoons that we have today, because those cartoons had soul, man. Those cartoons had joy. Those cartoons had just real family values, and they hit different, man. I don't remember what episode it was, but there was an episode where I asked some of you guys to well, I guess everybody, to tell me y'all favorite past cartoons, and I go back to my past. I go back to my childhood because it brings me back to a time where I had little to no responsibility, and it allows me to reconnect with the child version of me. So this week, I watched Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Why did I watch Jimmy Neutron? Number one, I realized that for some odd reason, and I keep unlocking them as I go through life, but for some reason, I could do one of the characters in the show, Carl Weezer. I could do his voice. Do I do the voice now? Do I do the voice now? Let me see if I can get into character. Ow, my scapula. Jimmy, I don't really know about this. Elfie. And scene. I think that is the best I could do right now for that voice. Is there any other line he does? No, his main one is ow, my scapula. And I've been realizing, side note from whatever we're talking about, or the main topic, excuse me, I could do, weirdly, I have 3 voices I could do. That one, I could do Mickey Mouse, which is I've been working on for years. And I'm going to do it right now because it's kind of my show. But here we go. Who's my pal? Who's my pal? Pluto, huh? And then I could do Kermit the Frog. For some reason, with Kermit, you gotta have to I have to swallow and then be Kermit the Frog here, Miss Piggy. This is a science production, kind of like that. I've been waiting all week to do those voices, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know what you think. With Carl Weezer, Mickey Mouse, and Kermit the Frog, and then I could weirdly do a high pitch kid voice. I'm trying to think of one of the lines I say. I don't know, you pick. That like that. But yeah. What were you talking about? No. But yeah, just getting back to I guess Jimmy Neutron. It's just I watched that show growing up, and Do I want to say Jimmy Neutron is a top 10 show in Nickelodeon history? Yeah, I think so. I don't have the top 10 in my head right now, but it was definitely one of those shows I enjoyed. Definitely when Jimmy Neutron and the Fairly Odd Parents had like those 3 crossover episodes, like Jimmy Timmy Power Hour, I'm like, mate, let's go. Like this was like the best thing in like history to me at the time. I was just like, bro, ain't no way they pulling these 2 shows together, because like they were the 2 top shows back in the day. But I say all that to say like that brought me back to some level of basics, bro. Like just reconnecting to old shows and still like finding a laugh in them as well has been really enjoyable. I've been really like diving into like old cartoons, like watch that. I watched Mulan actually on Disney Plus, non-sponsored by the way, because I realized I did not ever watch like I think the full Mulan movie, and I was just like, wow, this is pretty good. So much so that I watched Mulan 2, also really good. So yeah, I've been diving into a lot of old things to get back to basics, at least I guess from I guess like a children or like a growing up perspective maybe. But I think something that really tied this concept together, and I have to give a huge shout out to my family here, to my cousin Adrian and his amazing wife Anicia, which would also be my family now as well. Thank you to you both, because what what we talked about really helped me tie this whole idea of back to basics together. And so they kind of told me about this concept about like canon and filler, right? And if you're not familiar with these terms, let me just, let me cook for a second. Let me educate you. In anime, which is like, if you're not familiar with anime, that's like your Naruto's and your One Pieces and your Dragon Ball Z's, Japanese cartoons, if you will, right? In those type of shows, they have what is called canon episodes and filler episodes. The canon episodes are the true story. That is the actual story that's going on, right? That is the current story of our protagonist, whoever that may be, and we are seeing, or protagonists, multiple characters, and we're seeing them go through this story. That's the main story, right? That's where the good stuff happens. That's where you get your power-ups. That's where you get your drama. That's where you get your, everything that's really good about that anime, about that show. On the flip side, you have filler episodes. Filler episodes, and I had to look up filler because I had like one idea what it's about. Filler episodes are like episodes that are created, like when animation teams, need to produce more content, right? So for a little bit more story, like an anime, most times, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I did not Google this, but in most instances, an anime is an adaptation of a manga being like, let's just call it like Japanese cartoon comic book, right? So like you would have like a manga, which is in book form, which you would read, and then animation studio would pick up that and then turn it into a actual like animated show for our viewing pleasure, right? And so when a manga is like done for a certain period of time, and when like writers and script writers need to like fill in the gap until like more mangas are produced, and then they could adapt that manga into anime, they create filler episodes. And those filler episodes, from my journey with anime, has nothing to do with the actual story. Like, for example, right? Let's say that Mr. Good is the protagonist in whatever anime we're watching, and he's fighting Mr. Evil in village number 7 somewhere, right? So, of course, we've been watching these two battle it out in village 7 for X amount of episodes. But then you get to an episode where you see Mr. Good pull up to Super Value and pick up some carrots for no odd reason. That's a filler episode. It has nothing to do with what we were watching in the previous episodes. It's just literally to fill up the space and time until more mangas are created, and those mangas are then adapted into animation, and then, of course, we could continue the main story of Mr. Good and Mr. Seven fighting in Village 7, right? And so when I was talking about this with them, with my cousin and his wife, they told me about this idea, and I've never really thought of life like this, right? How life is canon and filler. I've never put anime, canon, and filler towards my actual life. Never have before. Have I tried to go Super Saiyan before? Yes, that is the most I've tried to do, and I have done the Kamehameha movement with my hands and the Rasengan as well, and Chidori to hopefully like get some chakra going, right? But I've never really thought of it from the idea of like life is like canon and filler, right? I think of life sometimes as like, chapters that we go through, right? And that's the same with anime. With anime, it's just like different chapters that you're seeing our protagonist go through in his journey or in his quest to be whatever, the greatest pirate of all time, to be the greatest shinobi ever, whatever it may be, right? And when I really thought about this, I was just like, where am I at, right? Where am I at with life? And through that conversation with them, I'm in the filler right now, right? And the thing about filler, ladies and gentlemen, most anime watchers, or even, you don't even have to be an anime watcher. Most people, who, I guess, watch a TV show or watch Netflix, whatever it may be, we don't want the filler. We want the good stuff right now. We want canon 100% of the time. Let me not speak for other people. Talking to myself, it's my show. I want canon all the time. I would prefer canon. Why do I prefer canon? Because that's where the good stuff is. That's where you get like I said, the power-ups, the drama. That's where you get the storytelling, the true storytelling, right? And, I think due to, subscription services like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, we're used to getting canon all the time, right? Or even with your basic television. When I was thinking about what is canon all the time, I think of like The Amazing Race, for example. If you're not familiar with The Amazing Race, it's like contestants going across the world, competing in challenges for like, I think a prize of like $1 million maybe. I'm not sure. I believe it's $1 million. But the point of that is every single episode that comes out each week on TV is canon. There's no filler episode. You will never see the characters like, again, go to Super Value and pick up like a carrot. Why would they do that? No, it's always going to be canon. The same with shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Always canon. You don't see them I guess they go on like a beach or something, but you don't see them not doing something for the purpose of the show, if that makes sense. The purpose of continuing the story of what's happening on the show, right? And so I think for a lot of us, myself included, we want to stay in the canon. We want to stay in the canon all the time. Because that's where the best stuff is. Because we kind of figured out what we're supposed to be doing. It's when we're in the filler, that's when life feels kind of meh. That's how I was feeling this week. I was feeling kind of meh. And I was trying to figure out why it feels so meh. This is in the Emoji Movie because it's dealing with meh. That's it. I'll stop. But no, it's just like I wasn't sure how to like navigate through the filler. You sometimes come to points in life where you're just maybe you're feeling stuck, or maybe you're feeling down, or maybe you just feel like you're just going through the monotony of life, rather, right? And you don't feel like nothing really crazy is going on, even though something like probably like 2-3 weeks ago was just going on. For me, it was just like Jesus March 2.0, canon event. That was something that I was building up to, right? Or maybe like when I passed my CPA exam, another canon event, things that I've been building up to that I could see that's going to be happening, And that's such an interesting thing because it's like, when you scroll through social media, right? I think most of us may agree with this, like, especially with Instagram, you tend to see like the best version of ourselves. I tend to put out, I guess the best versions of me, like the best highlights from squash, the best photos from a trip, the best videos, all these different things, the best, the best, the best. And so we see the best Canon events of every single individual that we may be following on there, But what we sometimes don't see, and I think a lot of times we don't see the filler. We may see the filler by like someone's caption, but we don't see what that person has got into to get to their kind of event, whatever that may be, whether them being passing an exam or graduating college or graduating university, getting a doctor's degree, getting certified in law, engineering, whatever it may be. We don't see the behind the scenes filler event. And what we sometimes do, sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but I, for one, I compare myself way too much. I see someone doing well. They're like, man, like they just got X degree. They got like X letters behind the name. I'm like, wow. Then I immediately look at my life and I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? Right? Like, and immediately I go into like go mode. Okay, like Dave, what are you going to do? Like, we're going to build Microsoft 2 right now on Tuesday at 2:46 p.m. Then I have to check myself. I'm like, brother, like, relax. Like go eat like some lunch. Go get a salad. We're not going to build Microsoft 2 today. It's not going to happen, And so I just find it so interesting, this idea of like canon and filler. Like, we always want to be stuck on the filler. And the question is, like, how do we enjoy life in the canon, And when I thought about this, I thought of a couple things from a biblical perspective. I think the first thing I thought about was the story of Jonah. Hear me out on this, y'all. When you think of the story of Jonah, right, and we, very, classic Sunday school tale, story of Jonah is like this. All right, boom. Jonah, my boy Jonah, was supposed to go to Nineveh. Jonah 1, verse 2. The Lord gave the message to Jonah, son of Amittai, get up and go to the great city of Nineveh, because they were just the Ninevites were being wicked. Jonah was just like, hold up, wait a minute, something right. I don't really want to go that way. I'm actually gonna take the first class flight. Well, rather, maybe you went economy or business class. I don't know. But, I'm going to actually go down to Tarshish and chill there. I don't really want to go to Nineveh. They kind of crazy over there, right? As we continue on through the chapter of Jonah, we see that, he went on a ship. He bought a ticket. Once he got to Tarshish, he went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving for Tarshish. So he never actually made it to Tarshish, but he went down to a port in Joppa, found a ship leaving for Tarshish. Tarshish, that is so hard to say. And then he bought a ticket and went on board, and hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. Joppa goes to the port of Joppa, get a ticket, and he's hoping to get away from the Lord because he does not want to go to Nineveh whatsoever. During that time, when he was on the ship, a big crazy storm was happening. The sailors on the ship were trying to figure out like what's happening, like what's going on. Jonah was literally catching REM sleep. Like, he was not disturbed by this at all. One of the sailors, or rather the captain, woke Jonah up and told him, "Get up, pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives." So what did the sailors do then? They cast lots to see which of them may have offended the gods in their case, and what could have caused such a terrible storm. Then after some deduction of elimination, they realized it was Jonah. And Jonah had to reveal himself to the sailors and be like, "Hey, I'm a Hebrew. Hello, hi. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land." And of course, the sailors were terrified because, they were just like, why would you disobey the Lord? Why would you do this? And so Jonah suggested, in order for this storm to come to a halt, he told the sailors, "Hey, throw me in the sea. Throw me in the sea." At first, the sailors were just really trying to, kind of just row harder while this big storm was happening. Then they realized ain't nothing happening. So they beautifully tossed Jonah off the ship. And as you can see, boom, the raging sea stopped as once, as in verse 15 of chapter 1. Sea stopped at once, boom. They're just like, yeah, wow, the sailors were kind of in shock of God's great power. And, they've been immediately offered sacrifice to the Lord. And I think in that case, they bowed to serve them. After which, our boy Jonah got swallowed by a fish. I always think it's a whale because of VeggieTales. And yeah, right now Jonah is chilling in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights. While he's in the belly of the whale, this is Jonah chapter 2 right now. He says, "Hey, please forgive me, Lord." Basically asking for forgiveness from the Lord in chapter 2. After that, hey, Jonah spit out the whale, or the fish rather, and this time he actually makes his way to Nineveh, right? And so, and frankly, if we just stop there, I think after that, after being swallowed by a fish, I think it's time to obey the Lord. Like, what? Like, bro, imagine being like swallowed up by a whale and having an all expense paid vacation for 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale. I hope that he had room service in there, but I don't think he did. Maybe they were on vacation. I don't know. But no, after that, Jonah goes to Nineveh. Jonah obeyed God's commandment by telling the Ninevites, like, hey, y'all gonna be destroyed in 40 days if y'all don't turn away from y'all wicked ways. Yeah, basically, yeah. Chapter 3. Turn away from your wicked ways or you'll be destroyed in 40 days. Immediately, the king of Nineveh heard what Jonah was saying, stepped down from his throne, took off his royal robes, told everybody in Nineveh, hey, we about to fast, yo. We about to fast, about to change our lives. And boom, the Ninevites were saved. And Selah. That is a summary of Jonah chapters 1 to 3. And why I thought of Jonah was just like, not much about like the Canon and filler event right there, because there was just a lot of Canon if we being honest. But more about the back to basics idea that I was talking about earlier and how I'm connecting those two, right? Jonah had to get back to the basics that the Lord provided for him. Jonah, he was told to go to Nineveh. Point blank period. Simple. Just go to Nineveh, vibe, and tell the Ninevites, turn away from your wicked ways, or you dead on the right. Simple. But Jonah instead say, nah, I'm about to go to Joppa real quick so I could catch a ship to Tarshish. And I'm going to just chill there, right? And so Jonah, in the hardest way, learned what it means to get back to basics, right? I think after being in the belly of the whale, I think we would all get back to basics in that case. Like, we see the error of our ways. We turn back to the place that we were supposed to be going. He went there, and boom, God came through in the end, right? And so I think it's just so important that we recognize that, right? Like, I think it's okay. I sometimes say, and I'm not saying that we should actively sin, but I think, or at least try not to, but I think that the Lord allows us to fall off the path in order to get back to him. I think I saw that in some of the study notes here. Like, I think sometimes the Lord just allows us to go on these paths that we didn't expect to go on, which are frankly not good for us. But then once we realize that God's plan is better and that we need to get back to basics, that's when we get back to basics, you know? So I think in Jonah's case, he learned that the hard way, but ultimately he was able to get there in the end, which, was so important at the end of the day. And so I think getting back to basics in that case, so important, something that we all need to do, and I think could be helpful for us all. And then tying that with the idea of, canon and filler events in our lives, Ecclesiastes, which is frankly one of my favorite books in the Bible, frankly, because it's one of the few books I've actually read in its entirety, but because King Solomon puts us in so much game within Ecclesiastes. Chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes talks about a time for everything, For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. That is Ecclesiastes 3, verse 8. And so when I reread this before I pressed that record button, I was just like, man, there's really a time and place for everything, isn't there? And so when I thought about it a little bit more, maybe there's a time for filler. Truth be told, I don't think I'll ever willingly, unless it's really good, watch a filler episode of a show. I'll always skip to the canon. But when it comes to this life that I live, or I should say that we live, I think we should recognize that there is a time and place. There's a time that we're going to be in a filler where we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the next canon event that's going to come through, right? But what I've recognized within, and I spoke on this chapter before in one of my previous episodes, but what I recognize about this chapter is that, like, and I've seen it in my life so many times, like, every time I don't know what's happening, bro. I'm just confused at, like, what the Lord is doing. When he finally takes me to that canon event, it all makes sense. It all ties together. I'm like, that's why we went through that filler. So that the canon can feel a lot more special, And so I don't really know what a lot of you all may be going through. Maybe you're just like me right now. You're in a season of a filler right now, and you don't know what's going to happen, And that could be a scary feeling. Like I say, hey, I get nervous, man. I get anxious. I know my anxiety versus, but hey, I'm human at the end of the day. I get very nervous when I don't know what's happening. But I think with Jonah and I think with Ecclesiastes 3, I don't think we have to worry so much. Jonah teaches us that once we follow God, hey, we could really do anything. And once we get back to the basics of life, things will be okay. Ecclesiastes 3 teaches us that there's a time and place for everything. There's a season for everything, for every activity under heaven. So that means that even if we're in a filler arc in our lives right now, that's how the Lord meant it to be. Not saying we won't get to the canon at some point, but I feel that maybe we can show a lot more joy in the filler. And by doing so, then life will be a lot more sweeter for us, right? And I think that's where my brain was at this week. Love the canon, but appreciate the filler. Know where you're at, get back to the basics of life. And whatever that may be for you, I hope you get back to the basics, and I hope you enjoy whatever season you're in. But I think we'll end it there, man. I love when things come together and when things kind of make sense. I don't know if it makes sense until I turn on the mic, so hopefully you all kind of catch what I was trying to put together. And I think it's a great reminder for me. So, hey, man, if you enjoyed, firstly, I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this brings some level of peace to you as it does for me. And I hope that we all take each day one day at a time, get back to the basics of life, and, enjoy the canon with the filler at the same time. So, yeah, man, I think that's me. I'm very excited to get some rest this weekend and, yeah, just to kind of relax a little bit, mate. But, yeah, y'all, it's been really fun. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. And until we meet again and until the next one, I'm going to see y'all real soon. And until next time, we move!